Characters are an essential part of any story. You always need some kind of person, creature, or group to follow a story structure and go through a significant trial or journey of self-actualization. This is true throughout all stories, as well as pretty much all characters. But you can present these characters in different ways and have some different perspectives based on which character you are interacting with or how they approach and work through their trials. This comes down to the different character types. One type of character is a round or dynamic character. This type of character changes and learns throughout the story. They start out one way and end as a different or changed person. While on the other hand, flat characters are participants in the story who do not change. They end the story as the same person they were before. Now, this isn't totally a bad thing. Maybe the point of them being sort of a flat character who doesn't change is maybe just to have them be like a paragon of virtue in the face of oncoming destruction or misery. But it still makes them unchanging, which therefore makes them a flat character. The point here is not that one type is really better than the other, but different types of characters can serve a story in different ways. I'm going to talk about a few examples from Disney with which you might be familiar. Elsa in Frozen is a perfect example of a round character. She has to struggle with her powers and learns a valuable lesson by the end. We see her swing back and forth between emotions, and she must learn how to open up if the story is going to have a happy ending. Dynamic, changing, learning lessons, making important decisions. This is the essence of a round character. Now, looking at another Disney princess gives us a good example of a flat character. Now, there are many qualities about Ariel that you may like. Her assertiveness, quirky nature, her free-spirited ambition, and these are good things to have in a character. And the fact that she's a flat character doesn't really negate any of that. But when you take a close look at it, she doesn't change throughout her story. I mean, okay, she does get legs at the end, spoilers for a movie that came out in the late 80s, but people often say, when talking about this movie, that she doesn't change as a person. She wants something at the beginning, she goes for it, there are obstacles, and she gets what she wants, ultimately, at the end. She gets to be where the people are. It doesn't mean it's a bad story, and it doesn't even mean that she's a bad character. But I think it does need to be recognized that she is the exact same character at the end that she is at the beginning. Determining whether a character is round or flat is very important, whether you're analyzing a character or writing one. Whether a character's qualities are to be revered or exemplified, or whether the point is to witness the growth and change of a character, is essential to determining what lessons we can draw from the text. Now, classifying characters as round or flat, however, has little to do with their role in the narrative. Now, we often understand stories as conflicts between good guys and bad guys, heroes and villains. Now, this is all well and good, but what if it's not so clear who the good and bad character is? What if we want to dig a little deeper and figure out if what a main character is doing is actually moral or actually virtuous? We can't just assume that because a character is a hero that they always do what's correct or that they always do what's moral. That's why using the terms protagonist and antagonist is more accurate to assessing a character's motivations. The protagonist of the story is the main character, and the narrative will revolve around their journey. A lot of times this is the good guy in the story, but not always. The protagonist can just as easily be the bad guy, quote unquote, if the story is told from their point of view. It all depends on what perspective we take. It also frees us from the idea that the main characters can do nothing wrong. It compels us to think about who is actually going through the struggles and the conflict in the story. What I mean by that is if we free ourselves from this idea that the good guy is always automatically right, then we can analyze these characters in a much more compelling, much more honest sort of way. So thinking in terms of protagonists instead of good guys is really going to be helpful for having a more free and clear interpretation of who's doing right and who's doing wrong in the story. And that'll help us more easily kind of draw a lesson out of the text. Ask who is the one the plot actually revolves around. So remember, the protagonist is the main character, but not always the hero. With that being said, the antagonist is the character that works against the interests of the main character. Oftentimes they're seen as the villain in the narrative, but as we establish with our definition of protagonist, this can be subjective. If the story is told from the viewpoint of the bad character, the good character is actually the antagonist. Sometimes it really just depends on the point of view. We use the terms protagonist and antagonist because the hero-villain scenario just won't easily fit into more complex literature, as you will see as we get further and further into the literature. And as we go through our stories, you will be free to assess and analyze characters, free from certain ideas you may have had about good and bad characters from before. Reading a story with an unvirtuous character as a protagonist can be a jarring, but exciting, new experience.